There's a darkness in all of us. But what happens when that darkness speaks its final words? Tonight, we're stepping into the death chamber not just to hear confessions, but to witness defiance, madness, and regret from the edge of oblivion. Some words will chill you. Some will break you. And some you'll never forget. Let's begin. There's a morbid curiosity that pulls us in, isn't there? Like peering over a cliff edge into pitch darkness. We're talking about the last words. Not just any last words, but those spoken by individuals society labeled monsters, serial killers facing their final moments on death row. What possesses someone who has committed unimaginable acts to say anything right before the curtain falls? It's a fascination tangled with horror, a need to understand the incomprehensible, even if it's just through a few fragmented, often haunting words. You might expect confessions, desperate pleas, or maybe just silence. And sometimes, that's what you get. But often, it's far stranger. The final statements from these figures run an incredible gamut. Chilling defiance, spitting contempt at the world right up to the final breath. Unexpected, almost mundane requests that feel jarringly out of place. Profound-sounding declarations that might be borrowed poetry or movie quotes. Even flickers of what looks like remorse. It's a bewildering mix, a final puzzle left behind by minds that operated so far outside our understanding of empathy and morality. This isn't going to be a simple, dry listing of facts. Think of it more as stepping into the chill of the execution chamber, into the tense silence just before the end. We're taking a creative dive, inspired by the stark realities of these true crime cases, but altering names, tweaking locations, imagining the spaces between the recorded words. Why? Because sometimes fiction, carefully crafted, can get closer to the unnerving psychological truths than a mere recitation of events. We want to explore the feel of those moments, the weight of those final statements, using narrative to unpack the spectrum of human emotion, or its terrifying absence, displayed at death's door. It forces you to ask uncomfortable questions, doesn't it? What are these last words, really? Are they a final performance for the witnesses, a last grasp at control? Could they possibly be genuine, a fleeting moment of clarity or regret? Or are they simply the last garbled signals from a profoundly broken psyche, echoes of a life lived in darkness? There are no easy answers here, only the unsettling weight of criminal psychology meeting its ultimate deadline. We'll journey through these final moments thematically, grouping these figures by the nature of their parting shots. From the cold and unrepentant to the strangely poetic, the bizarrely ordinary to the desperately pleading. It's a landscape of extremes, reflecting the lives that led them to this point. What echoes linger after the switch is thrown, the injection given, the rope dropped? Let's begin by stepping into that chilling silence, focusing first on those who met their fate not with fear or repentance, but with an unnerving, unyielding resistance, their final words one last act of chilling defiance against the world that condemned them. Perhaps it makes sense to start with the ice in the veins, the absolute refusal to bend, even as the final door clicked shut. Not every soul facing the end seeks peace or offers apologies. Some meet their state-sanctioned death with a final, chilling act of defiance, their words echoing the emptiness or the rage that defined their lives. It's a hard thing to witness, this absolute lack of remorse. Take someone like Gregory Stolten. His name became synonymous with horrors whispered in shadowed corners, disappearances, fragments of bone, whispers of acts so depraved they defied belief. Caught, tried, sentenced to rot away for centuries rather than face execution, he existed in a maximum security wing with eerie calm. His trial was a masterclass in detachment. Inside prison, he cultivated a reputation for grim humor. Jokes about cannibalism made guards flinch. He reportedly told one new guard, "Careful. I bite." Then came the day, years into his sentence, during cleaning duty. A heavy metal bar from the weight room, wielded by another inmate. Guards found Stolten later, barely recognizable. But before that final, brutal encounter, when confronted by the inmate, his response, uttered with that same flat effect. Utter indifference. "I don't care if I live or die," Stolten reportedly mumbled, almost bored. "Go ahead and kill me." No fear, no pleading. Just nothing. A void where human feeling should have been. A pure psychopath? Or a man so broken existence itself was meaningless? Either way, absolutely no remorse was evident. Then there are those whose defiance stems not from emptiness, but from a burning, twisted conviction. Victor Marsh stands out. Marsh announced his presence with thunder and fire. His target, the towering Midwest Federal Center in Olympia City. The massive truck bomb ripped the building apart, claiming nearly 200 lives, workers, visitors, children. A horrific act of domestic terror. Marsh's motive wasn't personal, it was fiercely political. He saw himself as a soldier fighting a tyrannical government, avenging perceived federal overreaches. Captured and facing the death penalty, Marsh remained ramrod straight, eyes burning with self-assured righteousness. He viewed the legal process with contempt, the sentence an irrelevance. Death, he stated, wasn't a penalty but an escape. Strapped to the lethal injection gurney, witnesses watching, his demeanor was unnervingly calm, controlled. His final act? Not a curse, not an apology, but a borrowed line of poetry, delivered with unwavering conviction. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. Pure defiance cloaked in verse. A final insistence on his own narrative, his warped sense of justice. It was a political motive carried to its deadliest conclusion. Not all defiance is delivered with poetic flair or quietude. Sometimes, it's just raw, ugly contempt. Enter Clarence Gable. A man presenting a friendly face to his suburban community, perhaps organizing local events, always ready with a smile. A mask hiding a predator who preyed on vulnerable young men. The sheer number of his victims was staggering. In court, the mask slipped, revealing a sneering, abusive personality, even taunting victims' families. On death row, awaiting execution, Gable showed zero remorse. Known for his foul mouth, his cruelty constant. So, when the moment finally came, witnesses assembled, the warden asking for any last words. Gable stayed true to his cold-blooded nature. No grand proclamations. Just 3 crude words spat out with a final sneer, "Kiss my ass." A final act of derision, a middle finger to the world. Bravado? Pure hate? A psychopath's empty gesture? Probably all 3. And then there's defiance born of pure, lifelong rage. Carl Richter was a force of nature, a one-man crime wave, assaults, robberies, arsons, murders. Perpetually at war with the world, and capable of empathy. Sentenced to hang, where the rope was still the tool, Richter was almost gleeful. He spoke of looking forward to the execution like a wedding night. He raged against human rights groups trying to intervene. On the gallows, hood ready, he didn't wait patiently. He screamed at the hangman, impatience burning. "Hurry it up, you bastard!" He roared. "I could hang a dozen men while you're screwing around." No fear, just fury. An almost animalistic impatience. It wasn't about making a statement, it was just Richter. Raw, violent, utterly without remorse. A final act of impatience from a man hating everything, including the process of his own death penalty. These men walked into oblivion spitting defiance, wrapped in icy detachment or bellowing rage. Their final statements offered no comfort, only a disturbing confirmation of the darkness they embodied. But was that icy resolve, this sneering contempt, the only way these final acts played out? Not always. Sometimes, amidst the expected darkness, came words that sounded disturbingly human. Words hinting at remorse, regret, or maybe just ordinary sentiment, creating a dissonance arguably more unsettling than outright defiance. Can a flicker of recognizable humanity truly surface from such depths? Or is it just another mask, another manipulation? The ambiguity is maddening. Consider Theo Branson. Handsome, intelligent, disarmingly charming, seemingly able to blend in anywhere. Yet beneath lurked a monster responsible for the brutal deaths of dozens of young women, leaving a trail of terror. His trial was a spectacle, denials vehement, manipulations masterful. When appeals ran out, the date with the electric chair arrived. The press gathered, hungry for a final, monstrous pronouncement. They wanted evil confirmed. What they got instead was anticlimactic. Almost banal. Standing there, moments from death, Branson didn't rant. He simply said, softly, "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends." That was it. Love. Family. Friends. Words any one of us might utter. Coming from Branson, the effect was jarring. A final grasp at normalcy? A calculated performance? Or, most disturbingly, a genuine, albeit pitifully inadequate, expression of human connection? The unexpectedness, forcing a confrontation with shared humanity, left many unsettled. The ambiguity lingers. Then there's Walter Bishop, the freeway phantom. His hunting ground, lonely highways, preying on young male hitchhikers. Capture brought relief, but the scale of his cruelty was staggering. Sentenced to death, Bishop seemed resigned. He ordered an enormous last meal, pizza, ice cream, soda, perhaps final indulgence, perhaps reflecting a life of unchecked appetites. When the time came, his final words weren't denial or apology. Instead, he offered advice, a warning. He suggested, almost thoughtfully, that anyone contemplating serious crime should first go somewhere quiet and think. Really think. What to make of that? A moment of clarity? Regret? Or a manipulative ploy to sound philosophical? Impossible to know. The contrast between rational counsel and irrational killing spree is perplexing. It offers cognitive dissonance, the killer as cautionary advisor, leaving us grasping for meaning. And sometimes, the shift is even more dramatic. Miguel Reyes, the rail rider, drifted across the country hopping trains, leaving brutal murders near the tracks. Initially caught, his interviews were filled with chilling boasts, no empathy. A defiant monster. But facing execution, something seemingly changed. No defiant speeches. Instead, a handwritten letter emerged, addressed to the world, primarily victims' families. His final words, read from it, were a plea. A raw appeal for forgiveness. "I want to ask if it's in your heart to forgive me," he wrote. "You don't have to. I know I allow the devil to rule my life. I just ask you to forgive me and ask the Lord to forgive me. I deserve what I am getting." A stunning reversal. Genuine remorse spurred by impending death? A last-minute bargain with God? A hope for peace? The ambiguity is profound. How to reconcile the earlier killer with the man seemingly begging forgiveness? It challenges neat categories, forcing confrontation with the possibility of change, however late, however inadequate. These moments, Branson's farewell, Bishop's warning, Reyes' plea, don't erase the horror. But they complicate the picture, adding unexpected words, shades of gray. They remind us, uncomfortably, that regret, connection, forgiveness might flicker even in the darkest corners. Whether those flickers were genuine or illusions, that often dies with them. But these glimpses of potential regret or simple farewells weren't the only deviations from expected evil. Sometimes, the final words weren't profound or remorseful, but sharply veered into the territory of the truly strange, leaving witnesses utterly baffled. It's like the wires just crossed. Forget defiance or sorrow, some killers met their end with pronouncements so mundane, so bizarre, or so darkly comic, they defy easy categorization, highlighting a profound detachment. It's absurdity on death row. Think about Ron Carter. Convicted of multiple murders, yet known for unnerving calm about his execution. He'd apparently told evaluators death wasn't that damn bad, even dropped appeals saying he owed it. So, the final scene. Carter stands before witnesses, the warden asks for last words. Anticipation hangs heavy. Carter nods slightly. "Yeah," he says evenly. "Go Wildcats." Just that. A shout-out to his favorite college football team. Imagine the collective blink. Was it ultimate detachment? A bizarre coping mechanism? Simply the last thought of a lifelong fan? Profoundly mundane, a strange request landing with a thud. Then there's Gary Trent. Crimes particularly nasty, targeting frail elderly victims. Yet, facing lethal injection, Trent seemed less concerned with his soul than his stomach. His specific last meal request included a particular brand of canned pasta rings with meatballs. But the kitchen substituted regular spaghetti. As the final moment arrived, his last words weren't for victims or God. They were a furious complaint. "I did not get my pasta rounds," he declared indignantly. "I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." The sheer absurdity is staggering. Complete dissociation? A final, misplaced assertion of consumer rights? Bizarre last words focusing on pasta while ignoring eternity. Sometimes, the bizarre tips into dark humor. Jack Finnegan, already serving life, killed a cellmate reportedly because the man annoyed him and Finnegan wanted the death penalty, begging the court for it. Clearly took himself seriously. Strapped into the electric chair, press gallery scribbling, Finnegan saw an opportunity. With a grin, he supposedly called out, "Hey fellas, how about this for tomorrow's paper?" Finnegan fries. Gallows humor at its most extreme. A final jab, controlling the narrative with a morbid punchline. Or consider Jerry Glenn. Convicted of brutal double homicide during a Christmas Eve robbery. Fought his sentence hard. Final moment. Witnesses waited. Would he protest? Curse? Plead? Nope. Glenn simply looked towards the viewing window, muttered wistfully, "I'd rather be fishing." Fishing. Mundane escape. Sarcasm? Genuine longing? Detachment? The contrast between his violence and this peaceful image is striking. And let's not forget outlaw bravado, sometimes ending grimly ironic. Tim Kettle, throwback robber/killer, cultivated his tough image to the end. Facing the gallows in Union County, he scanned the crowd, yelled swaggeringly, "I'll be in hell before you start breakfast, boys." Let her rip. Classic defiance. Except, the execution was botched. Rope too long. Decapitation. Gruesome. Maybe he was in hell by lunchtime, just not how he envisioned. His final boast turned macabre by incompetence. This descent into the absurd, the mundane, and darkly comic shows just how unpredictable these moments can be. Detachment, dissociation, strange personality assertion? Hard to say. But the strangeness didn't stop there. Some killers, instead of focusing on sports teams or fishing trips, turned their final gaze towards the heavens, or perhaps, somewhere else entirely. Religion, faith, the afterlife, these became the currency of their last words, often blurring the lines between genuine belief and profound delusion. When facing the ultimate end, the human mind reaches for something beyond, though what it grasps can be as varied and disturbing as the lives led. Take Alice Warren. Scarred by a brutal life, leaving dead men along highways. Stories shifted, self-defense, robbery, then just killing. Trial chaotic. Sentenced to lethal injection, her final moments weren't serene. An apology, yes, offered to victims' families, a rare crack. But her actual last words? Bizarre, rambling prophecy, colliding pop culture and warped faith. Strapped down, manic energy, she declared, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the rock and I'll be back like Liberation Day. With Jesus, June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back." Pure delusion, a possible messiah complex mixed with sci-fi. A break from reality? Desperate coping? Hard to say. The prediction, unsurprisingly, failed. But invoking alien invasion movies alongside Jesus speaks volumes about an untethered mind seeking redemption or attention in outlandish ways. And stark contrast was Karen Miles' calm certainty. Convicted of murdering elderly women during robberies, possibly fueled by addiction. Miles approached execution with serene triumph. No rambling. Just a quiet statement. Facing witnesses, perhaps the chaplain, she framed death as reward. "This is not a loss," she stated clearly. "This is a win. You know where I am going. I'm going home to be with Jesus. Keep the faith. I love you all. Sincerity seemed palpable, but ambiguity gnaws. Genuine death row faith finding peace? It happens. Or a calculated performance? Or delusion itself, a twisted logic justifying horrific acts as part of a divine plan? The contrast between peaceful assurance and violent crimes is jarring, raising questions about faith, redemption, and self-deception. Then there are religious pronouncements layered with potential hidden meanings. Consider Ricardo Rios, the suitcase slayer, convicted of killing young women, disposing of bodies gruesomely. His final statement invoked spiritual struggle. I have fought the good fight, I have run the good race, he declared, quoting scripture, before telling the warden, I'm ready to join my Father. Surface meaning, finding peace, joining God the Father. But add a fictionalized history, a childhood marked by a tyrannical, abusive father. Suddenly, ready to join my Father, takes on a chilling double meaning. Heaven? Or the damned father of his past? An unconscious slip? A coded acknowledgement of deserved darkness? We can't know, but that ambiguity adds profound darkness, a reminder that even in appeals to faith, past shadows loam, twisting meaning, leaving us wondering about a killer's soul embracing the afterlife. Whether born of genuine faith, desperate hope, performative piety, or profound delusion, these final appeals to the spiritual offer a complex, disturbing window into minds grappling with deeds and demise. While some fix their final thoughts on the next world, whether through sincere faith or stark delusion, others use their last platform to address this one directly, lodging final complaints against the system that condemned them, or making one last, desperate claim of innocence. Their final words became a final protest, turning the execution chamber itself into a stage for commentary on justice, fallibility, and the ultimate punishment. Consider Jonah Stern. His case messy, drifter picked up, motel, fight, gunshot. Stern claimed accident. Jury didn't buy it. Stark timing, among the first executed after Sun State controversially restarted its electric chair after years. The machinery of death rusty, controversial. Rights groups appalled, some locals gleeful, a radio DJ reportedly fried bacon on air that morning. Stern, in this charged atmosphere, facing reporters before being led away, offered a bitter, cynical critique. Capital punishment, he likely sneered. You want capital punishment? Just make sure you have the capital without the punishment. A play on words, dripping resentment. Turning the state's power back on itself, highlighting punishment, questioning capital, justice, fairness. A final protest launched from the edge. Whether his message resonated likely depended on belief in his story. The messenger tainted the message for many, however pointed his capital punishment critique. But sometimes, final words aren't critique, but direct, horrifying challenge to accuracy. This brings us to Roland Cole. Convicted of murdering his cousin, shocking their community. Cole fought the verdict relentlessly, maintaining innocence. Unlike Stern's murky case, supporters pointed to shaky evidence, ignored suspects. Doubts lingered. Execution day, atmosphere thick with uncertainty. Strapped down, lethal chemicals poised, Cole asked for last words. Voice perhaps trembling but clear, an innocent man, he declared, eyes on witnesses, is going to be murdered tonight. When my innocence is proven, and I pray it will be, I hope Americans will realize the injustice of the death penalty, as all other civilized countries have. He also spoke briefly of love for his girlfriend. The impact of such a claim of innocence, seconds before the state ends life, is profound. It forces confrontation with irreversible error, justice system fallibility. Was Cole truthful? We might never know. But his final protest challenged the moral certainty needed for execution when wrongful conviction looms. The ultimate drama, potential killing of an innocent by the state, voiced in a final plea echoing long after. These final protests transformed the condemned into commentators, using final breaths to judge the system. They remind us legal battles end, but questions of justice, fairness, punishment linger, carried in the weight of a final protest from existence's edge. From cynical critiques of the system to heart-stopping claims of innocence, these final protests underscore the immense weight carried by last words on death row. They join the chorus of defiance, regret, absurdity, and faith we've heard echoing from the edge of existence. We've journeyed through a gallery of final moments, witnessing chilling indifference, rigid conviction, vulgar dismissal, and impatient rage. We saw unsettlingly mundane farewells, perplexing warnings, and dramatic pleas for forgiveness. We scratched our heads at bizarre requests and darkly comic quips. We pondered complex blends of faith and delusion. And finally, we felt the weight of final judgment turned back on the system and haunting claims of wrongful conviction. These narratives, creatively shaped, draw power from the disturbing reality they reflect, the profoundly varied, often baffling final statements from society's most notorious killers. They're fragments of extreme human experience, final thoughts broadcast from the precipice. But what do they truly tell us? What's the ultimate meaning? The unsettling truth is, we can rarely know for sure. That's the heart of the ambiguity. Was it genuine feeling laid bare, true remorse, authentic faith, honest defiance? A calculated performance, one last manipulation? The product of profound delusion, a mind fractured by darkness or pressure? Or simply the last flicker of a complex, damaged personality? Often, likely an unknowable tangle. Discerning true intent behind these haunting legacies remains challenging in serial killer psychology. It brings us back to that morbid fascination, that pull towards the abyss. Do these stories satisfy curiosity? Or merely deepen the mystery, highlighting the vast gulf between actions and inner realities? These final thoughts rarely offer neat conclusions. Instead, they leave lingering, unanswered questions echoing long after silence falls.